Hey guys, Saria here with another DIY video. With school coming back so quickly, I decided to do a DIY school supplies video. All of these, of course, are Disney inspired, but honestly, even if you're not like an obsessive Disney person like some people, they're still super cute. So I hope that you'll watch the video and check them out. If you do like it, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. I post videos like this every Tuesday and Thursday. Without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. For this project, you're going to need some pink acrylic paint, a blue folder, and pink puffy paint. I use the shade Red Violet. I hung my folder upside down using these curtain clips that I have hanging in my craft room. It's how I store fabric. But I hung the folder so that when I took the acrylic bottle, I could squeeze the paint out on the edge of the fabric and it would naturally drip down. Thank you, gravity. I think you could also use pants clip hangers to do this. Now I want to show you what happens when you use a hairdryer because I did this and I regretted it. It smears the paint and it dries it really funky. It's just messy and gross. Don't do it. Just let it drip and then lay the folder flat to dry overnight. So then I took my pencil and I traced out the words "Make It Pink." You could also do this folder in reverse and do "Make It Blue" if that's what you wanted to do. And then I took my puffy paint and went over the letters with it. This doesn't need to be perfect. I tried to do little swirly letters to go with the style, as well as just make it to where I didn't have to line anything up perfectly. And added little hearts over my eyes. And that's the final product. For this one, you're going to need a 1-inch binder in a lavender purpley shade. I chose this glittery one, but just make sure it doesn't have that clear plastic on the front. You're also going to need some pink ribbon. I found this cute leaf trim at Hobby Lobby, which I'm going to use for the back. And then you will also need a light pink lace trim. You're also going to need a hot glue gun, hot glue sticks, yellow yarn, and scissors. To start off, you're going to create the corset effect that's on Rapunzel's dress. So you're going to basically make X's with the pink ribbon. So start off and then glue one piece down and then measure your second piece according to it, if that makes sense. And then you're going to hot glue that second piece down to make an X. And then you're going to proceed up the top of the binder, making X's as you go. I started off a little bit more narrow and got wider as I went, just because that's how corsets work. And just make sure you're connecting the X's as you go. If your edges aren't perfect, that's okay. Just try to get them as close to it as you can. Now that you have all those X's done, take your lace trim and you're going to hot glue that down the sides of the X's like this. I started with dots of glue on the points of the X's, and then I went back and added a little bit of hot glue underneath the rest of the ribbon. For that excess, you can either cut it or you can open the binder and glue it to the inside. It just kind of depends how you want it to look. And then do the other side. So that's what the front looks like when it's all done. Now we're going to do the braid down the binding of the binder. So start off by taking your string and going from the length of your fingers down to your elbow twice, and then you're going to cut it and then measure the rest of your yarn according to that. I cut about 40 pieces of yarn altogether. Then you're going to take the end of the yarn. I would just take a short piece of yarn and tie it around it. I'm going to knot mine, which later on I was like, this was way harder than just tying a little piece of string around it. I do that on the second end of the yarn and it was so much easier. So ignore my knot. But then just comb out the yarn, and then you're going to add something heavy to the end of it. I just put a candle on top and I started braiding it. Just divide it into 3 equal sections like you would your hair and go ahead and braid all the way down. And then take a small piece of yarn and tie it. That's what it looks like when you're done. So now you're going to attach it to the binder. Take a bunch of hot glue, add it to the end of the braid, and then press it firmly to the binder. I left off that excess because that's where I knotted the hair, and this is where I go through with the string, learning from my mistakes. And I triple knotted it around it, and then I went through and I pulled the braid to widen it to match the width of the binding. I added some more hot glue and just pressed down the braid, and then I continued this down the binder. Something to note about the yarn, I would suggest using a smoother yarn, not one that's really fuzzy. I don't know if it would cause problems, but I do feel like it might snag more than this kind of yarn does. So now I have some excess on my bottom, so I'm going ahead and I'm tying that little strip of string, and then I'm just trimming off what I don't want. And then doing the same on the top, and then I'm actually going to open up the binder and hot glue the end down into it. As long as you do it short, it doesn't impact the binder rings being able to open and close. And that's what it looks like when you're done with the braid. So now I'm going to go ahead and take some flowers. You don't have to do this, but it just kind of reminded me a little more of Rapunzel. Make sure you cut off the end of the flower, the little nub that is still attached, and then just hot glue it and press it down. Alright, so now that we're done with the front and the side, we're going to move on to the back, which is really simple. I'm just going to take that leaf trim that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to glue it down in just 3 simple lines. This just made it to where it looked completed, and it kind of reminded me of the details on Rapunzel's dress. I just added a couple dots of hot glue onto the leaves at the top and then a couple on the bottom, and then if I felt like it was a little too loose, I would go back and reinforce just some of the leaves in the middle. And this is the final product. For this project, you're going to need a terracotta pot, some acrylic paint, and some coordinated puffy paint. For the honey, you'll need multi-surface golden yellow acrylic paint, a cup for your paint, and a paintbrush. Start out by putting some of your acrylic paint into a cup, and then you're just going to go ahead and start painting the surface. I started with a sponge applicator, but I really didn't like how it was looking texture-wise, so I switched over to a brush. You are going to probably need 2 coats of paint. It's just what makes it look nice and smooth so you can't see any of the lines. Do the edge and then go on the inside, and then after it's dry, go ahead and do your second coat. Now that your paint is all the way dry with your 2 coats, I started tracing out the word honey. It's very important though that that second N is backwards so that it looks like the one from Winnie the Pooh. Then go over the word with your puffy paint. This part can actually be messy because I think it kind of goes with what it looked like in Winnie the Pooh. And now for the fun part. Take your multi-surface acrylic paint and start just dripping it down the side of the pot. I'm going to show you what happens when you do a ton, so just kind of watch and see what you would like it to look like. This is when I do a lot, and it drips, man, all the way down. And then I just went along the edge and kept doing it. Something just to make it look even more like honey is that if you go back over it after it's kind of drying and smudge it with your finger, it just makes it look a little bit more together and less like paint. And then after that, I went back and did a second layer over it, which I'll show you in a minute, and it makes it look even cuter. So this is my honey pot after it dried. I let it drip all the way down. I thought it was super cute. And then there's the back. And so I'm going to show you what I meant by doing a second layer. So now that it's dry, I'm going to take my acrylic paint and get to the top of the pot and just keep going over it a little bit more. This is what gives it like a multi-dimension drip. And now it's all done. To start off, you're going to need a wooden ruler. Y'all, these are 32 cents. Awesome. A sponge painter, some yellow paint. Lastly, you'll need a fine point Sharpie pen. And you're going to start off by just taking your sponge and rubbing the paint all over. Don't squish it, it creates kind of bubbles in the paint, but literally just rub it all over the ruler. Super fast, super easy, and pretty much impossible to mess up, I will say. I just did one coat and then I took this plastic ruler, I know, a ruler on a ruler, and drew a straight line using a Sharpie pen across the side. So now I'm going to go in and write down the words that are on Mary Poppins measuring tape. So the first one says, extremely stubborn and suspicious. Definitely try to space out your words better than I did. If you can do a pencil first, that'd probably be really helpful. So now I've shifted up to about midway on the ruler and I'm doing rather inclined to giggle. Doesn't put away things. What a shame. And then I'm just adding those little like inch markers. They're not accurate, but they're still cute. And then the last one, practically perfect in every way. There are reference images online. That's what I used to get the right kind of look that I wanted for the ruler. And then I did this little swirly design like she has. And then I went over it a second time just to make it a little bit darker. And then I just added in my little lines and I wrote Mary Poppins at the top. This is the finished ruler. Now for my favorite one. Alright, so I got this little wooden box with curved sides at Hobby Lobby. It was only $2 and I used my 40% off coupon. And you're going to need a wood stain. I did dark walnut, 4 buttons, and an assortment of jewels. So I started off by taking my paper towel and staining the box. I was super careful and I will say I didn't get any stain on my hands, but y'all, okay, I did, but it washed off. But you guys, seriously, if you can use gloves, I really would, because then you don't have to stress about how you're holding the box and how you're holding the paper towel. So anyway, take your paper towel, rub the stain all over the box. If you want it to be darker, do another coat. If you want it to be lighter, do a really light coat with your paper towel. A little tip, if you use too much stain, take a clean paper towel and just wipe it and it'll take most of it right off. Like I'm doing right here. And that just kind of evens it out a little bit. Alright, so let the outside dry. It's just going to depend on what kind of stain you used, how long it takes. And then you're going to move on to the inside. Same thing, being really careful. This was the part where I got stain on me because it was harder. So yes, use gloves. So now I'm going to take a Q-tip to get into those corners and like the harder to get to parts that the paper towel just wasn't really getting. And then wait for the inside to dry. And now you get to do the best part. So take your jewels and you're just going to glue these all over the top. I would definitely start out with large jewels in your first layer, because if you want it to kind of stack up and look like the cart is overflowing with them, it's way easier to do this with the big jewels, and you end up not seeing them very much anyway. Just a little bit of their sparkle comes through. So I'm just taking the big ones and layering and layering and layering. The good thing about this specific box is that if you glued them over the edge, it would still open. That was something that I really liked about it. So now you're just going to watch me glue gems on. Lots and lots of gems. You need to clean up the hot glue as you're going, just so that you don't have to do it all at the end, because those little strings can get really obnoxious at the end. So now I've done a bunch more, just really focusing on using the big ones as I layer. And then I took those flat circular ones that we all see everywhere, and I'm kind of putting those on the edge, because they are going to be on a bottom layer, but they're a little bit smaller and easier to place. And then now I'm going through with my smaller circular ones and gluing those all over the top. The ones that I put toward the top actually don't have a flat back. They have like a beveled bottom, which makes them pop up really nicely. So now I'm just cleaning off the hot glue strings and adding a few more. I really wanted mine to have like a curved top when it was done. So now I'm just making sure that it does still open and everything, pulling off the hot glue strings. And now for the buttons. I'm so sorry, y'all. My memory card filled up, so I missed the first 3. But just apply some hot glue to the button and use the little dots on the button to line them up so that your cart lays flat. And then peel off any excess hot glue. And this is what it looks like when it's done. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. I can't wait to put paper clips in it. And that wraps up our school supply video. I'm a teacher and I cannot wait to use each of these in my classroom. I hope you guys feel the same. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you do recreate any of these, tag me on social media at DreamItDIY. See you in my next video on Thursday.